haven't been home for 10 years. When you're gone for that long, you forget. You're acclimated here in the US. You know the flavors here, you know the ways here for 10 years. And so when I went home, it was this burst of just life. Everybody was out all the time. Everybody's walking, food everywhere. Like it follows you. And I was just like blown away by the flavors for the first time. And I've been eating this food for all my life. And maybe because of the absence of it, that when it came back into my senses, I was just like, oh my God, this is so good. I need to figure out how to bring this to the US. I would like to advocate for real Filipino food and not so much on the fusion side. Yes, I would add a little bit of sauce here and there. I'll add a little bit of crunch because people love different textures in their food just to elevate it, but never really changing the flavor.
Hello, friends. It's me, Donna Bell, your host of To Hum is Human, a podcast where we explore how listening to our intuition helps us live and express our passionate purpose. I'm so glad you're here. In today's episode, Carrying Home with You, Migration, Food, and Selfhood, we explore food as care, movement as language, and the courage it takes to place your identity on the table and trust that it will be received. My next guest is Sherryla Diola, the heart and chef behind Ginger Love Cafe in Western Massachusetts. Sherryla's story unfolds across continents and creative forms, from growing up in Davao City in the Philippines to training and performing as a dancer around the world to eventually finding home in Western Massachusetts, where she founded Ginger Love Cafe as a way to share Filipino food, culture, and care. What emerges is not just an entrepreneurial journey, but a deeply human one, shaped by migration, belonging, and the choice to carry culture forward rather than leave it behind. Welcome, Sherryla.
Hi, Donovan. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. And I'm so happy you're here today. Now, Sherryla, you grew up in Davao City in the Philippine island of Mindanao with parents from Iloilo and a father who was a seaman. He was often away most of the time. As a child, how did you understand who you were in your family and where you fit?
Well, I am the oldest out of the three kids. It actually took a little bit before my siblings came. So I had 4 years with my parents. So I actually had really good quality time with them when I was a kid before my siblings came in. I just remember that my parents have really trained me how to be the older sister and really take care of my brother and my sister and teach them also along the way what they need to learn about behaving and being around my cousins, and the things that my parents taught me. My parents expected me to actually take care of my siblings a lot.
Mm,
So
mm.
that's pretty much kind of my role growing up.
Well, with your mother holding daily life together while your father was away, what
Mhm.
did you absorb about responsibility, care, and showing up, especially as a Filipino woman?
My mother was a really great example because she was there with us all the time. I went to a private school in the Philippines when I was in the elementary years, and my two other siblings actually came and studied there with me. And she would be in the hall waiting with the other parents, waiting for us to have our lunch break, to have our recess, and she's always there for us. So that was a great example that my mom kind of taught me how to be there for my siblings, my family all the time. Yeah, so that's kind of how I grew up.
Hmm. Now, you studied and performed traditional Philippine dance. What
Correct.
drew you to study dance?
Mm. I think I was born to be a dancer. Because, well, Philippines as a whole loves performing, dance, singing. We'd have karaoke. If you look at social media, like it's kind of like a way of life in the Philippines.
Hmm.
And I remember when I was younger, my mom would do aerobics dances in a studio and she would bring me along. And that aerobic studio have like children classes. So I would join these classes and I would have friends through that. And then we kind of grew up together. What really drew me to dancing was it's very prominent in the Philippines. Everybody seems to be doing that. And then also, I could go to school for free if I was a dancer. Like, for instance, when I was in high school, I was part of the Dance Arts Center, which is basically an after school program for students, and they can do it after school and they can be a part of this dance studio. The director of that, Mrs. Bel de Castro, actually kind of tied in the dance center to the school, but also as a member of that dance troupe, you can accelerate to being a company member. And then they teach you how to teach dance to small kids. And then every year you go higher, higher in the level until you get to a company member where you perform all over the country with other company members and you perform in these shows and they pay you and then you also get really good credit and it was just so much fun. It was honestly one of the most fun times of my life. And then when my family moved to Cebu City, there's always this thing that you have to reach, right? After you do the 4 years at Dance Arts Center, they would connect you to other prestigious dance companies within the country. And one of them was in Cebu City, which is the USC Dance Troupe, University of San Carlos Dance Troupe. And through that, they basically offer you to travel all over the world. And
Mm,
so I became a dancer there. I trained was kind of like accelerated so quickly that I was on my way to the Netherlands on my first year. Yes, but came along with that was really rigorous training
mm,
because you're compressing everything into 6 months that people do in 3 years.
mm,
And so eventually I really fell in love with dance. Not at first it was superficial. And then eventually I saw the art of it, the
mm,
art of the movement, the way you extend your arms and how you basically like enjoy and expand, that movement, very, very small movements that you do in every day. And also portraying because sometimes the dances depicts stories from the history of the Philippines
mm,
and kind of being brought back to that time. For instance, there will be dance numbers or like a repertoire that would be depicting how people used to harvest rice and
mm,
then create some sort of celebration after that harvest. So there is like a storytelling that
mm,
comes along with the performances aside from the skill that comes along with it. For instance, we would be putting rice baskets on our head. You have to train how to carry those rice boxes without it falling. At
mhm,
one point, we had 10 clay pots on top all the way, and that represented full of water, right? And you walk and dance with those 10 clay pots on your head. So eventually, dance was like, oh, I want to be a performer. I want to do this. I want to get the tuition. But through this whole process, I've learned the art of movement and also training like an athlete.
mm,
I actually danced more than I went to school,
mm,
because when we were traveling, the dance group will excuse us from all our classes and stuff.
mm,
So I probably didn't learn so much about fine arts, but I was really good at learning dance the dances in the dance group. But it was also like being close with your co-members, your relationship with other people because you travel, you're with these people all the time.
mm. Being in this dance company took you across countries and cultures at
Hmm.
such a young age. In
Yes.
those spaces where you were the outsider, what parts of yourself became stronger?
Definitely the training part was making you physically stronger. And also mentally, you have to be in this different culture. You stay there for like a couple of weeks or 3 weeks and you stay with host families. Adjustment to your environment, just trying to adapt,
Mm,
in different countries.
Mhm.
When you're younger, you don't really think about these things. I did this when I was 17 and 18 years old. I was a dancer all the way until I came here, which was I was 27. So I did it for 10 years professionally. And so I was put in different situations where I have to adapt to my environment. I have to adapt to the people that I am performing. I have to adapt to different culture for a short period of time. And also mental strength, I think,
Mm,
was really developed, and it's very rigid. The
mm,
whole, because it's a prestigious dance group in the Philippines, the city actually hired the dancer to do the ambassadors of goodwill. Because when
mm,
we go to these sister city ties, we have to represent our city, and then this city in turn donates things to the city, money, books, computer, ambulances, everything. And then after you perform, you have to talk to the guests and be around that, and being a people person and
mhm,
talking to them and listening and absorbing. So those are qualities I developed. Actually, I wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't for dance, my experience in
mm.
dancing.
As a dancer and performer, you are very visible and
Yeah.
obviously acting as an ambassador in some ways for the Philippines, but visibility isn't the same as being known. When did
Mm-hmm.
you start wanting to be seen on your own terms?
I still don't. Still try to hide. It's only honestly now
Mm,
that I am, because being a dancer, as you've said, you're always in the limelight. The attention is on you all the time. And so I never really felt like I lack that. In fact, during my season, I am exposed to my customers all the time, to my employees. So when I in my downtime, I like
mhm.
to just recluse. I try
Well,
to like hide, because that's when I do most of my thinking, most of my
mm,
conceptualizing,
mhm,
most of my dreaming is
mm,
when I am by myself. Like
mm.
my life is, as you know, very fast paced a lot,
Yeah, very,
and
very public. Yes.
very public.
Mm,
So right now I am in my off season. I
mhm.
try to listen to a lot of podcasts and try to just have my me time.
What brought you to the US and eventually landing in Northampton,
Yeah.
Massachusetts?
Well, I met my ex-husband in the Philippines in a restaurant. We lived in the Philippines for a year, and then we decided we wanted to come and visit the US. And so I have a job back in the Philippines. I was an aerobics instructor for Marco Polo. And it was a pretty good job that I left, and I didn't want to lose it. At this time, I was so traveled out. I didn't want to leave the country. I wanted to just stay in the Philippines and build myself there through fitness. But he wanted me to come here and see it. And he said that we're going to stay here for 6 months and then go back to the Philippines in the winter time. And so that relationship did not work out, but it brought me to the Pioneer Valley,
Mhm.
which I ultimately fell in love with. I created so many good friendships right off the bat. And really, I don't know, this valley, and I've lived everywhere. I've lived all over the world and all over the US before I decided to live in Northampton. And I have seen a lot. And at that time, Northampton was thriving with arts, music, people all over. And I really love the art scene, the music scene around here. And so
Yeah.
that's how I ended up here, because I
Mm,
really cultivated a lot of really good friendships right away.
mm.
You know,
Well,
so
if you know that you go to a place and it's so welcoming, you know you're in the right place, right?
it really did. Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
so I'm curious about when you started to consider bringing Filipino food to the
Mm,
community.
yeah. I was a food distributor. So I was in the food industry for like 15 years at this point. And I work like 4 days a week, 6 hours a day. So I had a lot of time in my hands. And I started doing a lot of food distribution for local Massachusetts made food products. And that transcended into a demo. So we tried tasting this food. I hired the people that would do this. So it was a totally different business, but it allowed me to get access to a lot of food products. And so at this time, the food distribution business was already on its way to growing. And I was kind of like transitioning from being a server to a business owner. And I honestly did not really think that I was doing a business. I was thinking that I was just filling my time with something. And then when you have that momentum, it's almost like, okay, what else is here? You open that door and you just go
Mm-hmm.
into that door. Okay, this door is opening. You just continue on following your curiosity. 2018, I've decided I was going to go to music festivals. I was dating a guy back then, 2017, 2016. He was a part of a band. And so we went to music festivals a lot. And I saw all of these food vendors that are in the music festivals. And my business mind kicked in and was like, wait, we're here and we're like, yeah, this is fun, but that's way more fun. Like whatever the food vendors are doing, they're feeding people. They're kind of like part of the culture of the music festival. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I think I would really want to try doing that. And I already have access to a lot of food products, all of these companies that I've been representing. And I figured that it will work hand in hand with the product building production that I was doing with my food distribution. So I started doing little markets and then I accelerated towards music festival up in upstate New York. And I only did drinks. I didn't do any food at all. I did Callus kombucha, herbal teas from Tea Guys, and I called it Oasis. And then, so we did that and we lost money. So
Live
it
and
wasn't,
learn. Mm-hmm.
and that's the time when I realized, because you're talking to these food vendors that are right next to you, I was starting to absorb information that could lead me into opening up my own food business in music festivals. That was the business model that I was trying to create, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, all right, well, I'm going to do my food distribution. And then in the summertime, I'd like to travel to these music festivals and make some money. And so I was talking to them, and then I told my ex-boyfriend now, it's like, if we go to a music festival, can I buy eggs and English muffins and bacon? And I want to make some breakfast sandwiches. And the boom boom sauce that we have now at Ginger Love Cafe, I created that at that time and I put it on everything. I wanted to test out and see how would that feel with the food and not just drinks. And it sold out in like a couple of hours. And then we would sleep and they would be knocking on our tents because I was illegally selling it in the in the campgrounds. Well, everybody's doing it. I wasn't just the only one doing it, you know? And so they would be like, hey, are you selling more of the breakfast sandwiches? And I was like, oh my God. So I would wake up and whip up some breakfast sandwiches for them. So I knew I thought it was really fun doing it, you know?
Hmm.
And so 2019, I went home and I
Back
haven't
to the
been home
Philippines.
at the
Yeah.
Philippines, and
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been home for 10 years. When you're gone for that long, you forget how it is like. You're
Mm-hmm.
acclimated here in the US, the flavors here, you know, the ways here for 10 years. And so when I went home, it was this burst of just life at you. You know, we
Mm.
traveled together there. It's like everybody was out all the time. Everybody's walking, food everywhere. Like it follows you. You don't even have to look for it. The food follows you everywhere there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like blown away by the flavors for the first time. And I've been eating this food for all my life. And maybe because of the absence of it, that when it came back into my senses, I was just like, oh my God, this is so good. I need to figure out how to bring this to the US. And I was already doing little pop ups here and there. We did like maybe 3 or 4 music festivals the season before I left. And we sold random things like banh mi, peanut noodles, like all of these things. And that partnership didn't go in the direction that I wanted it to go. And a friend of mine suggested to me, was like, why don't you bring Filipino food here? And
Mm.
I was like, well, it's kind of scary because no one knows Filipino food. Like, I don't know if people would like it. So when I came back to the US, I basically asked one of the local breweries if I can sell sliders, like little sandwiches throughout the winter time. And what I did was I did like half the slider selections would be like grilled cheese, tuna sandwiches, meatballs, the usual that we would eat here. And then the other half I did chicken adobo, pork tocino, longanisa, like little sandwiches. I put it out there because I wanted to see how my customers would react to the flavor profile of the Filipino marinated meats. And it sold out like right away. It was the
Mm.
one thing, it was the flavor profile that people were really, really going for. And the next time that I come back, I made more and more. And I, to a point where I just phased out the other stuff and I
Mm.
just made a whole line of Filipino sliders.
Well, when you introduce a new food to a culture that's never been exposed to it, I imagine there's a little trepidation, a little hesitation because
Yeah.
you're, and I can sense when you're like, well, I don't know if they've ever had it before. And I wonder. And it's such a great affirmation that you
Mm-hmm.
did it because people obviously loved it and you
Mm-hmm.
sold out. Where did the name Ginger Love Cafe come from?
Oh, I wish I could give you a more complicated story. It just came out of my mouth.
Hmm.
It just was like, because ginger is an ingredient that here it's being used in the cuisine here and it's very spicy.
Hmm.
But in the Philippines, you do the trilogy, the ginger, the garlic, and the onion, and you mix it and you cook it down. So the flavor of the ginger is kind of just like a background. It's warmth. And I came up with the name during the pandemic. And it seems like at that time, there were so many things going on, like the Black Lives Matter, like there were a lot of uprising. Our government was not in a good space and still to this day. But at that time, it was really, really like people were angry. I figure that if I'm going to pop up in places that I would like to remind people of love, I feel like ginger is kind of like the Filipino representation, and love is love. So it's like
Hmm.
a Filipino love cafe. But
Yeah.
I thought about it later on. It wasn't really something that I, on the forefront, really know the meaning why I did it. But then later on, I kind of realized that that's what I was trying to express.
I think it's a beautiful name and it's very catchy and people can
Thank
remember
you.
it easily. Now, when you first really launched your menu
Yes.
for Ginger Love Cafe, did you ever feel the pressure to soften or explain or adapt the Philippine flavors? And if you did, how did you decide what you were willing to compromise and what you weren't?
Yeah. So when I was in Cebu as a training dancer, the whole crew would go to this place called Larshan. And what it is kind of a night market with barbecues all over the place. And then we're eating puso, which is a braided coconut leaves, like a ball. And then they put rice in it and they cook the rice in it and it expands and you can eat it easier because you just cut that and it's like a clump of rice, and then the barbecue. I wanted to create an environment that was like that. So I wanted to emulate that. So to me, I never really sacrifice any flavor. In fact, I would like to advocate for real Filipino food and not so much on the fusion side. Yes, I would add a little bit of sauce here and there. I'll add a little bit of crunch because people love different textures in their food just to elevate it, but never really changing the flavor. It
Mm.
stayed the same way. For the most part, for me, it was more of like the vibe of the place, and then the food just came in the way it is. So I never had, like, I basically started with barbecues, chicken, pork barbecue, and then I did the lumpia, which is my mom's recipe.
Can
And
you
then
explain what those things are for our listeners?
yeah, so essentially it's the Filipino style spring roll, but there's different kinds lumpia in the Philippines. So what is the most popular here is the lumpiang Shanghai, which is like the little egg rolls or spring roll.
Hmm.
And it's essentially a ground chicken or ground pork. And then in my recipe, I put raisins, relish, carrots, GGO, ginger, garlic, onion
Mm-hmm.
in there. And then I season it and I put it in a wrapper and roll it like a little tiny spring roll. So it's really nice for appetizer and it's nice and crunchy. You dip
Mm-hmm.
it in vinegar and
And that's deep
garlic.
fried, right? That's
Yes,
deep
deep
fried.
fried.
So good. I've had
Yeah.
so many of them.
Yes. It's really hard to sell them because I just eat it all the time. Not good for my diet. Yeah, so I did the lumpia. I did the chicken adobo, which is a braised chicken thighs with soy sauce, vinegar. So the flavors of the Philippines, in my interpretation,
Mm-hmm.
is really a good combination of acid, sweet, and sour. My version of it, I ump the sour a little bit more because I feel like the acidity elevates the flavor more. It's almost like a circus in your mouth. That's kind of like my identity. I try to make everything just a little bit more flavor, just a little bit more than the normal flavor. So that's my interpretation of Filipino food. And so I feel like during that time, I didn't have to compromise anything because I feel like Filipino food is so good. And I wanted to be like really in your face, the flavor.
Yeah, yeah. And I think too, when you're kind of representing the Philippines, especially
Yeah.
in this area, there aren't many
Mm,
Filipino there I think you're the only one that I'm aware
right.
of who are serving Filipino food and to introduce quite signature dishes that
Mm-hmm.
most people would associate chicken adobo,
Yes.
the lumpia, so that it becomes more commonplace here, of
Right.
course. And you offer so many other things. I love that you're also including halo halo, which
Mm-hmm.
is that a dessert, and it
Mm-hmm.
means mix, and you can
Mm-hmm.
include crushed ice with all these
Yep.
other amazing sweet flavors.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you finally got into your rhythm and your
Yes.
groove with Ginger Love Cafe, and you've noticed that things were just selling out, were so popular, did it change how you trusted your culture as coming in from the Philippines at first hesitating offering these things? How did that change for you over time?
It definitely created a lot more confidence. And so because I don't have to guess anymore of what I want to sell, all of the things that's on my menu, by the way, are my favorite food. So you probably will find it that it's a little bit random. But then through the years, I was able to hone it in into rice boxes
Mm,
and noodle boxes. So my classic approach is introduce the Filipino marinated proteins. You can do a version of that in vegan also.
mhm, mhm.
So, because we have this wonderful meat substitutes these days, like jackfruit, for instance, or the Impossible Burger, or anything that is out in the market, the tofu, you can turn it into something great. That's what's great about the evolution of food these days. And this is a reason why I got into really the food and the food science of everything, because I love watching how the food evolved through such a different way up to now, and then how much options you have to create such wonderful dishes. All you have to bring is creativity to the
Mm,
table. So basically, I became very, very confident and really fueled me to expand a little bit more and reach more people, because I feel like it has reached mainstream market now.
mhm,
Because in the city, when I go to the city, forget about it. Like, I got to bring so much food. People know Filipino food there no matter what. Here, we are starting to know Filipino food a little bit more now.
mm,
And I feel like as a person or a pioneer in this town, bringing Filipino food, I have this huge responsibility to make it not scare people. I'm not bringing
mm.
balut in. Yes. Yes. You know,
And
yeah.
if can you explain to people what balut is? Because
Yeah,
it is
balut.
not for everyone.
Not for everyone, not even for me sometimes,
Me too.
like,
Me too.
no. It's essentially a duck egg that has
Mhm,
not hatched, and
mm,
it's boiled like a hard boiled egg.
mhm.
And then there's
It's a
live
fully
chick.
formed yeah, it's a fully
Well, there
formed
are, yeah, you
chick.
can do 14 days,
Mhm,
18 days, 21 days, 28 days, or something like that. I can't
mhm.
remember. I hope I'm correct with the numbers. But anyway, the the braver people go to the older because it's a fully formed duck. But you
Yeah.
can order it where it's mostly like egg yolk. It's supposed to be very nutritious, but can
Mm.
also cause high blood pressure if you had too much of it. But
I think every cuisine has something like that.
I know, right? Yeah, so I'm very confident now, and it gives me this room to kind of recreate it in a way that in my town, I want Filipino food to be able to relate to people in a
Mm,
way that they're not scared to try it. Thank goodness for my food truck that I
mhm.
have that name recognition in town already and in the Pioneer Valley, that they trust me, that what I'm offering them is something that they would.
Well, and I love that you started off as a pop-up, and I originally
Yes.
met you in the beginning, actually, I think
Hmm.
at the Black Birch Vineyard, where you
Yes.
had a tent, and then you moved into a food truck, and
Hmm.
then now you have a brick-and-mortar pop-up space. Can you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that?
Yeah. And yeah, you're such a great supporter of it. So thank you so much. My friend Chris Ware, one of the owners of Jake's Northampton, brought this idea to me in the early spring. We were trying to collaborate because he wanted to work in the food truck also and seeing what that's like. And then he's basically told me, it's like, we have the space at night. If you're thinking about doing a pop-up, it's available, if you
Mm,
would like to do it. And as a restaurant person that have been around restaurants for a long time, I know how much work it takes to basically run a restaurant. What I love about the food truck is that, yes, you are working intensely for 6 or 7 months and then you stop completely. And then you can do whatever you want. You can travel, all of these things. You can't do that with a restaurant. You have
mm,
to be there all the time.
mhm.
And so the pop up seems to be very attractive because number one, it's collaboration with another restaurant. It's a unique concept. And then
Yeah.
number two, it's I would say it's a little bit more flexible than owning a restaurant where you have a lot of overhead. So I gave it a try and I was like, you know what? Let me think about it. And then we can figure it out at the end of the season if I actually have the energy to do it. So,
Mhm.
so at the end of the season, I just felt this urge to, because a lot of people are like, where are you? Where are you located at? Where can we find you? I'm like, well, you're going to have to look in our Instagram and see where we are. And then sometimes we're like out of town. I love the idea of spreading Filipino food all over the Northeast, but I know for a fact in my head that at some point I'm going to have to stay put and concentrate that effort in my own community.
Mm,
And I just was looking for the right timing. True enough, my friend came with a very great concept. And so we are doing it at Jake's right now.
mhm.
Actually, we wanted to try it for a couple of months for the winter time, just to extend my season a little bit. And then after that, if I feel like it's good, it's successful, and it has can build its own legs, then we're going to continue it alongside with my food truck season and then for the whole year. So we did it for a couple of months and it was such a great response. I was able to actually connect with my food truck customers that have been following me through the years and speak to them and talk to them and chat with them and actually hang out with them and talk to them about what their experiences are, their stories, their connection to Filipino food, their connection to Filipinos. And it's such a great experience because it just came full circle for me. Having to basically put your head down and work, 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 and just build, 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 build. And now you're just basically looking back up to what you have building through the stories of your customers. It was really amazing.
It's such a brilliant idea, and I think it could be a potential model for other businesses like yours who
Definitely.
want to have a brick and mortar presence but not
Right.
commit to a place because Jake's is
Right.
really a breakfast and lunch restaurant and it's
Mm-hmm.
closed in the evenings. And how
Yeah.
smart to use
Mm-hmm.
that space for
Yeah.
your beautiful food in the evenings. I
Yeah.
thought that was just an amazing idea, and I hope other
Thank
people
you.
figure that out and try to make that happen for themselves as well. I am also acknowledging that full circle moment because when you were in the dance troupe and really building the community through your own group, right?
Mm-hmm.
here you're going outward and building the community through your customers. How
Mhm,
beautiful that is to
mhm,
carry
mhm.
that forward. Looking back now at your parents' sort of entrepreneurial lives in their own right, how
There.
do you see yourself continuing or rewriting that lineage?
Yeah, so I never really thought I was going to be entrepreneurial because of my background, dance, fitness. I was more of the creative person in my family rather than entrepreneurial one. But then when I look back on it, I was entrepreneurial. I didn't even realize that. I was like the first sales rep of my dad. My dad used to manufacture vinegar from coconuts and had different flavors. So I brought the vinegar selling to all the department stores in Cebu. And then my mom would buy me little snacks. And while they're doing their mahjong session, I was their little snack girl that sells them those snackies while they're doing their mahjong. Yeah. So moving forward, I would love this model of Ginger Love Cafe to apply in as much towns as I can bring it. I feel like it's either going to be in a food truck form or collaborating with another restaurant. And I am also a huge camper. Actually, in the off season, I am living in my camper because I travel all the time. In the winter time, I either rent a house or whatever, but I am super, super mobile. But bringing those roots down, I think, is my next step and creating something great out of that. So, building Ginger Love Cafe and hopefully getting into the camping world.
Hmm. Well,
Yeah.
Sharila, where can people find you, what you're up to, or how can they taste your food?
Follow me on social media, Ginger Love Cafe at Ginger Love Cafe Instagram, at Ginger Love Cafe Facebook. We also have a X or Twitter account that I just did, and they can also follow us on TikTok. Social media is the best way to know where we are and what we're
Hmm.
doing. And I'm going to be filming a lot of Filipino scenes and food while I'm away. So if you guys love travel videos or whatsoever, glue in on Instagram,
I
Ginger Love
love
Cafe.
that. I love that you're sharing the culture
Yeah.
literally as you're going through the Philippines and with all your adventures and travel. Sherila
Yes.
Diola, I am so grateful to you
Well,
for sharing your journey with such honesty and tenderness and
thank you.
strength. What stays
Mm,
for me in this conversation is the reminder that home isn't always a place. Sometimes it's just a practice,
exactly.
and sometimes it's a flavor, a rhythm, or a way of taking care of people in our community.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you do that in so many different ways with
Mm-hmm.
Ginger Love Cafe. And I so appreciate you being on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for being a friend and a great support.
Thanks for being here. I hope something from today's conversation stayed with you or gave you a new way to look at things. That awareness, that pause, that's where things start to shift. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who might need it. You can learn more about my work and what's coming up at sonorouslight.com, and you can follow me on Instagram at To Hum Is Human. Until next time, keep humming.